Hey, hello everyone, and thanks for slipping some time with me today. So we're getting really close to finally taking this for its first drive in over a decade. In preparation of getting this ready to go, a lot of the finishing touches, I've done a lot on this car already for those who've been watching this. I had to do a number of things such as the timing belt. I changed that out. I have a whole, I think it's a 4-part series on how to do that. So I'm not going to go into details in this video. Just I did that and all the accessory stuff around it. This still has the B belt on it, so it kind of has 2 timing belts to do. So I did that. I flushed all the fluids. That includes the brake and the clutch fluid. Also the rear right, the rear right one, it doesn't seem to be catching when I put the foot pedal down. So I don't know if it's seized or not, but we're gonna basically go down the road with it and see if it loosens up on its own just for some natural heat on it when you're applying the brakes or the brakes are trying to run. I don't know. If that brake doesn't loosen up after going for a drive, I'm gonna have to take the caliper, the piston inside it apart and probably get it to work. I did the coolant flush, but I also did a pressure test on the I'm going to show a little bit of that, but I did a pressure test to make sure the coolant system was holding especially after I did the water pump and I did the thermostat, which I put new spark plug wires in because the old ones I think were stock, and I think they had some spots on them that were kind of, I don't know if they were chewed by mice or whatever, but good to do. The spark plugs were changed. What else did I do? I'm going to change the air filter. I haven't done that. Change the oil, transmission fluid, rear diff fluid, transfer case fluid. Yeah, oh, you know what else happened? And I'll show you that too, is the alternator failed. So I'm going to get this done and then we can go for its first drive in over a decade finally. I got a few things to do still on it to get ready for that. And the first drive is pretty important to diagnose if there's any other issues going on as well. I can't remember if I've ever shown you guys how I do a pressure test in the coolant system. A lot of you probably do this, but if you're wondering, basically pressurize it. And this is the tool I got. They all work pretty much the same as you pressurize the system and see if it holds pressure. I got a little adapter here that goes on, and then this little thing. Basically, this is a bladder that inflates, and just a minute here. We'll just tighten it up here so it holds pressure. And this inflates in there to seal it up. And you'll see if I do this, I'll just try to do it with one hand. It's kind of hard to do. Whoop. So you see how it balloons out and basically seals that up. And it'll deflate here. There you go, it deflated there. And yeah, so after you do that, then you basically put the valve in, so then it actually starts injecting pressure into the system, and then you see if it holds pressure. So tighten the valve up so it doesn't relieve any pressure. Put it in here, latch it onto this adapter so it can't jump out. Inflate the bladder to the pressure that it says it should be, right there. So now it's sealed. Then we shoot the valve here, and now I can pressurize the system. So we got about 18 pounds in there, and then I'm going to see if it holds pressure. And I think it will, but this is a test after I had the system apart. Like I had the water pump apart, and I replaced that gasket in there. So I had the neck off here and did the thermostat. And if anything, any other leaks or bad hoses, see if they'll blow as well when it's under pressure. And that's been sitting here for probably 3 hours and has been at 18 pounds PSI. So the pressure system's holding. I have to replace the water pump and I replaced the thermostat in there. So awesome. It's holding pressure. So we're good on the coolant. I was going to replace these hoses, but I'm having trouble sourcing some for now. I might replace them later, but they're holding pressure and no leaks. So I think we're okay for now. Also, what I like to do is I like to let it sit kind of open to see if it basically any air bubbles might come to surface overnight. It helps anyway, just in case there's little bits of air in there. I did burp it. How I burp it is I go actually to the lower hose down there, and I just squeeze it like that off and on until I see some air bubbles coming out, until I don't see any air bubbles coming out. There still could be a little air trapped in there. So then what I'll end up doing is I'll start it up and let it circulate with the pump when the thermostat's open, and then we can basically watch it vent all the bubbles, hopefully, if there's any air trapped. Once that's in, I'll top it up and close it up and make sure that that overflow bottle is at least to the line that it needs to be when it's cold or hot, depending if it's hot or cold. And then we're done with the coolant system. This has a Fram filter. Don't use Fram filters. You're going to see on the internet and everybody that works on cars to say don't use them. And I agree with that. And I have firsthand experience many years ago, one going bad on the DSM. It basically started leaking, didn't seal. And of course, there's a lot of controversy about how well they filter on top of it. Don't use them. I'm going to replace this one with a Mitsubishi one. Use wicks as well. And that's all I would ever suggest on any car, to be honest, is either using the manufacturer one or a Wix. There's probably others that are just as good, but you can't go wrong with those two products. Use them. Is this 11.9 volts? And I did a meter check on that. It should be higher than that. And I double checked it with the meter just in case the ECU sensor was bad. But notice when I shut it off, it actually goes higher. If the alternator is working, it should go actually higher when it's on. So we got a bad alternator, and I confirmed that by actually going right off the alternator voltage, and there's no increase in that. So the alternator's done, and we've got to replace that, which is pretty common on these cars. If you have one, you know what I'm talking about. It's about the only thing, if you do all your maintenance on these and take care of them, that may leave you on the side of the road. Unfortunately, it does happen. I would recommend actually having a onboard voltage meter, so you can always monitor, and then if it ends up going back to 12 volts when you're driving, then you probably got a short amount of time to get that alternator replaced and get to somewhere where you don't need to be on the side of the road and be stranded. So to get the alternator out, well, first of all, if you're wondering what voltage I checked directly off, it was actually there on a meter with the positive and then negative to ground. And then I took that guy out of here so I can get this out of here. And that's pretty much how you got to get out. Other way is, I guess, if you want to remove the power steering pump, I think I don't remember if I've done it that way or not. But so that's what I do, is I remove this fan, and then you'll see me pull it out once I get it disconnected. So what I did, I couldn't source locally an alternator, and I wanted one fairly quick because it was one of the last things to do to get this for a drive, and I need to move some stuff around here for some other parts coming in for the Lotus. So I was kind of in a hurry to get this done. But also, I found out that, so in Canada, as well as the Galant that was sold, they came with 90 amp alternators for the first generation Eagle Talon. Other than that, I think they were 75. I think the second generation had 65 amps. So I couldn't find a 90 amp anywhere online. I looked. So, and this was actually the original Mitsubishi one that was in it. So it lasted a long time. And why these fail is because they're right next to a turbocharger. So the heat just cooks them all the time. And I will tell you this, I've had, over 20 of these probably Eagle Talons, Eclipses, etc. And the only time I've ever been stranded on a road is because of an alternator. As much as everybody says that these aren't reliable, if you maintain them and if you don't go crazy with horsepower, and if you do crazy horsepower stuff, then you got to make sure you adapt everything else and modify everything that needs to be done to make it reliable. But stock engine, alternators fail often on these cars. It's probably stranded a lot of you out there that drive these cars. So anyway, I wanted to have still the 90 amp alternator. So there is a guy locally, or there's a few of them, but that rebuild alternators. They still have the warranty and everything. And by chance, he had the parts for it and had it turned around on New Year's Eve, actually, of all things, in a couple hours and got it ready to go. So I have the original alternator rebuilt. It's a 90 amp one for this car, and it should be good, and we'll put it in and make sure it tests, obviously, that it's still working, and it's got a 1-year warranty. You really can't beat that. The moment of truth is I got it all hooked up now. I got the meter on, and when I start it, that 12.87 volts hopefully goes up. And if not, then I've still got a big problem. So let's test it out. Awesome, 14.33 volts. Alternator is charging. We're in action again. When I shut it off, 12.65 volts again. That's working good. Just gonna make sure the coolant's still topped up after I flushed it. Oh yeah, we're good. I put a new cap in as well. The other one was kind of failing. This is full. So something else I'm going to do when I get there, I got to get the air filter yet, and then I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to do a boost leak test, and I'll show you how to do that to reduce your boost, to make sure you got no leaks in your vacuum lines, etc., and that you're holding boost, because you can lose a lot of power with if your boost isn't holding. And I don't have a meter on here, a gauge or anything to measure boost to see if it's falling, but even then, your turbocharger will compensate for a lot of leak, but you're still losing power because it's working a lot harder. So you want to make sure that there are no boost leaks, or relatively no boost leaks. Of course, it's going to leak a little bit around the valves, etc., and a few things, but it shouldn't drop too fast when you do your test. The alternator is good to go. So let's, well, we got to get this motor mount on and a few other things. Got to get the fan in. Yeah. We'll get some stuff doing so we can get it going for a drive real quick. I am excited to take this for a drive. Can't wait. Looks like it's time to change the calendar. Got some more helicoiling to do. These guys here, I'll show you. Right here, they're stripped out. Pretty common on aluminum valve cover to do that. So I've got to drill those out and put some helicoils in. Done that in previous episodes, so I'm not going to bore you with doing that again. That's what I use, and we drill and away we go. All right, after quite a long trek to get to this point, we're finally going to take this car for a test drive under its own power for well over a decade. It's going to be driving and running, and we're going to see how it does. I think it's in pretty good shape to do that, but we're not going to know, and we might find some other things going on with it as we take it for a drive. I hope not, but let's go see what happens.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like. Find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends.
All right, I'm just driving it around town right now. Got some logging going on here too to make sure everything's okay. First thing I wanted to make sure is those brakes shined up a bit after having some rust on the rotors and that, and I think they're shaping up okay. I might actually take it to the highway. I expected it to do okay, but you never know when a car's been sitting that long, just what's going to show up. We got a couple more things I want to do when we get it back to the shop, like maybe a boost leak test or something like that, and well, of course, we'll check it all over after taking it for a drive too, but so far so good. Let's take her to the highway and see how she does. It's running okay. I've never heard a DSM so quiet in years since this has a stock exhaust. That is entirely unusual for these things. Very impressed. Definitely, I can feel the brakes dragging right now, and I'm hoping they clean up, but we'll see how they do. This just goes to show you that you can rescue these things after they've been sitting so long, and you know, you might want to think about parting it out or junking it or whatever, but give it a shot. See if you can resurrect it, because you'll appreciate it and someone else in the future is going to appreciate it. These cars are getting really hard to find, especially all together. This is a stock example. Yeah, it needs some more love yet, but it can get it. It can get to brand new shape if you want it to, because everything is here right now. The log's looking okay. All the indicators are okay. Thermostat's kicking in, I can tell by looking at the thermostat. Oil pressure's good, and we're just chugging along here. I can tell it may need some wheels balancing perhaps, but that's no big deal. Brakes are a little doggy, I guess we'll call it, but we'll be okay. Let's see how we do here. Well, she spins on the snow. Running okay. It's coming around, coming around. Let's test the brakes out. Oh, brakes work. Oh, she's got some power. She's coming around, guys. Oh yeah, she spun a little bit. Not bad for stock. All-wheel drive. Yeah, she's coming around nicely. Let's get her home now. Well, I am impressed by its first run after sitting so long. This thing is ready to go. I think it is. Yeah, again, it needs some love here and there to get it looking really nice, baby. I'll give it a wash or something, and I got a few other things I want to check, especially after taking it for a run. But I think this is ready to give the owner very soon for him to have some fun. After 10 years, I keep saying that, but for those of you that have ever got a car running after sitting so long and in a condition like this, I'm sure you appreciate how awesome it is to get this where it is at, that I can drive it. The owner, I think, is going to be pretty happy that he can drive his Talon around and have some fun with it. Not sure if he's going to drive it in the winter or not, but I doubt it, but you never know. But he'll certainly have something to get the spirit back into him after so long of not driving it. And I think he's going to love it when he gets it home. And then once he drives it, he's going to see how well he loves it, and if he loves it enough, he's going to go to some next phases and get this thing to where he'd like it to be, I think. Maybe even for his daughter in the future someday too, which it was originally her car. All right. It's running pretty nice. You hear a little belt maybe or something back there. We'll see what's going on, a little hissing, but she's running okay. I can smell a little bit of kind of old dirt, yeah, some old dirt basically spraying on it a bit after things warm up, but she's running okay. Yep, fan's kicking in when it needs to cool down at idle. This is awesome. This is working great. So here's a log of when I hammered it down a bit. You can see on the throttle position here how I basically was up and down on the throttle and shifting and stuff. That's the RPM. Here we have the injector pulse, which makes sense. What I really like to see is this O2 sensor up. It's getting close to 1 volt, which is great on its open loop, on open throttle there. Timing seems to be doing okay. Let's see what it actually is. It's 20 degrees, which 22 degrees is usually what I see there normally on a stock one, and nothing's adjusted. You just can't adjust. This is just a stock ECU. There's no programming we can do on it or tuning or anything. So we are doing really well as far as what I see here. Very happy with this, and out of the gate, this is awesome. Well, it ran just fine. Pretty proud of this baby after all that. That was awesome. So here's the rundown. Everything went well. Logs were okay. Ran good. Everything, all the gauges, no trouble lights or anything like that. So the only thing that I did find out after running it, and I expected maybe this will happen when they were trying to wear down a little bit and get that surface rust out, but this wheel, a little hot. And that back right one, which I did suspect actually that might be a stuck caliper on that one. So I've got to look at that and see what's going on there. I don't think it's a wheel bearing because I did try to check that basically before I ever left and there was no give in it at all. So I'm pretty sure it's the caliper. The caliper is really hot, more on that backside. But that's to be expected basically. So this car is a driver at this point. I'll take care of those little issues. There's some other little things I'm going to do as well. But it's more fine-tuning before I give it to the owner, and I may show you some of that depending how involved it is, and if it's too trivial I probably won't show you, but other than that, it's a good day. It all ran, and yeah, so if you want to see kind of where it goes off to the owner, please subscribe. I've got some parts coming for the Lotus. I've been talking about that. I've heard that in the next day they're supposed to arrive to me. We'll cross my fingers, I guess. And the parts are going to go right where the camera is, basically, for now. And the Lotus chassis is right there. As you kind of know my shop, I guess. And until then, enjoy every day, and always make it right.